better numerous occasions and multi-level attendant on Trump persuade Trump an asymmetrical partnership benefit Trump bought the Trump authorized weapons sales out India would have circled the picker from the use of fearful of Pakistan or China. Trump again India the special trade status NATO allies for high and defense attack has been leading on India on competitive trade and with country to especially defense cooperation with the low so the guys US in relation India and US are committed to free and Pacific this conversion enhances the partnership the state of cooperation the growth of the US and India defense the relation of India was once overly dependent on Russia but it defense good from US suppliers and reducing F-16 torpedoes US India relation takes measures to alleviate cats 6 years off the table. Christian 19. US played cats to punish Moscow punish Trump's defense like listing US official the President Defense Minister to with an author that they could avoid technical degrees by F-16 as a quick work cats enforce blowing a gate hole in India's war faking capabilities America interference with being a quicker backlash in India torpedo the partnership it didn't include any arms to the Australian cats would place in India the focus main reason US was going easy is that Washington and India the press of the working out arms as applying cats could slow down expanding cooperation and India is a key ally in our fighting against China or arms in the next few years even if the alliance is sustained without arms India can military not sustain efforts to head against China military dominance about 19 India's forces alarming shit intense warfare break out tomorrow because so 10 is advantage 68% equipment is vintage troops like modern equipment to conduct 21st century operation US official attacks presenting alliance at all about their frustration as well and bureaucracy makes arms as cumbersome whatever problem US is determined to make a key ally in the coming years ahead against China the is being prioritizing alliance with India the relationship with Pakistan south of the Pakistan drawn on the US flight or now with the trouble it is military holds to take a virtual location inside India but it's important territorial water spacing India maritime trade with they can help the US in a box in the US and swing state to tip the balance and that is India not to mention how the India spends how it spends the modern arms upgraded technical capabilities we need to be doing the same that collapses the global order turns case guarantees great power war brands and fever 16 powerful China can challenge US interests globally China has not become more liberal disruptive behaviors and maritime places tries to undermine US alliances challenge ages will be found just to go to the trade up engagement with China offer to preserve American privacy she faces a great power nuclear conflict as a specter great power trying to use force against the allies adversary just boundaries and exert pressure on neighbor betting on invest in the third also trying to do South America with the great power conflict that's therefore reach a higher level and then at any time democracy feature being without China being pushed against us good power friction work or position cause you're somewhat protected a fast follow technology narrow the power gap I would design to the question of whether American mobilize the permanent capability the US political and only sport decision need to sustain the tragedy of piracy. Public sport rates are at least green sided maybe you become shaker with a 70 undermine combat the effect of all the global strategies next to the avenge campaign. The United States federal government should maintain foreign monthly sales and record sales of arms to India. Cease attempt to create a four-way alliance with India, Japan, and Australia. Reduce cooperation. Japan and Australia engage in talks regarding strategic stability with Russia and China. Reduce economic sanctions on Russia and China. Pressure Pakistan to redeploy troops on the Afghan border and against the strategic allies of China and Saudi Arabia. Strengthen Pakistan aerial defense offense capabilities and modern to offset all arms sales. Investment in the Pakistan conventional arms production capability. Defend joint force doctrine and share intelligence with Pakistan. Modify current arms sales to India, include economic offset to India. Increase investment in India. Engage in should identify prerequisite GPC evidence. The first four planks so the China Russia-China alliance. Yellow 1 see trust us 18. If the US, Japan, India, Australia, non-alliance, key element, Indo-Pacific, try to come to fruition, with the decline of value of an asset, at least favorably investing for a time, with the quad purport not being Canadian, China certainly does quite happen. Was presenting commitment of power China to defend some more under pressure. They catch was on the China discussion to warm the rest into China, Russia likely a very critical Indo-Pacific strategy. Next 4 planks of Pakistan called Jeffrey 48 policy recommended with what thing force Afghan border. This would improve Pakistan force race and improve joint integration determined or just the committee developed joint force doctrine to be tested. Similarly, extending cooperation has better intelligence. Mark that card there. Mark that card at intelligence sharing. 25%. Substantial reduction means 25% cost Seattle 95. DoD revises the required application for a substantial reduction of major defense program program could require major systems substantial reduction of 120% of the total value of the contracts under the program value less submitted to 25% of or if we inserted a charge for if one limit any other definition openly exploited hundreds of undermined ability to do quality research. 2% evidence that a DoD definition predictable basis of rapid side ASIC and voting issue stretching and limits key core generic counterplans. The DFB to set the plans reduction in sales overhead hammers overall military readiness and warfare effectiveness hands what FS can maintain the vital production line the coast of the loss of technology capabilities of the capability a rapid short period of sophistication for every cell with hard recovery that can put this in hard time we're setting any part of the base of the low opposing cost better through exponentially ready mark that card at sustain and released within the global F-16 production cap regarding 17. India is on the market for a new fighter plane and dealing shooting up F-16 rapid India likes the ability to develop a fighter reserve in partnership in the F-16 fighter can the text and some latest jet and should make current range production generate but these we goes India sells plan to new customers mark the card there and global nuclear war weapon capabilities are escalation top of 70 using the avoid crisis Russia decided to move a nuclear weapons and eliminate Russia watching developing nuclear wars Washington wanted a conventional warfare capable Washington conventional aggression the low danger conflict accident nuclear but offering the illusion of cities set to lead Russia to launch and mark the card at launch skip the circumvention decide and pick read the pick else no move on case or do you want me to read the pick? No. Okay. case. The plan cancels integrated air defense sales of vital over Indian missile defense and assuring leaders of capital gunning. And Adult 20, the U.S. agreed to sell India IADWS, the upgraded Indian defense capability, including current future air. This included the K-11 U.S. expanding against system to share target information. To avoid IADWS improves the ability to stop such. India has a defense committed no level of problem integrating the one India is finding major improvement software. An estimate to handle the targets over 50-17. An estimate to use a radar and other factor India. Bureaucrats live in a working ability again until it's all out of sense of self-preservation, but India defected air defense outside and that's permanent official nuclear where with low altitude because the card or Pakistan defend the Tennessee and northwest border and absent production and protection. The abundant and few stretch crisis ability dropped in 870. And if you have positive stability, one person beat several India's national leadership and if you based on something leadership with nuclear for central Pakistan and where absent the company India limit, but actually capital and show India 60 and if you stability going instead of India deciding a new wants to move toward the first use and effective two nuclear powers other figure nuclear trigger lead to highly unstable nuclear balance. Mark the card there. Or it's at the end. No impact but maintain the deterrence is key. Covering at least 16 increase nuclear capability for security reason connected Pakistan analysis focus on Indo-Pac action and dysfunctional government Pakistan or defensive likelihood of Pakistan whose nukes to achieve war in no Indo-China war, second over China, I know they may abort and Christian, but they are going aggressive. Any of this fight that I don't think that any nuclear threat to China, like China would attempt anything China. I like to go in a perfect regular world, let alone one flying nukes. Next, internal link. No interlink. The co-guards actually say the cost is war. This says the Pakistan went to an arms race, no war for why US arms to keep the candidates by for Israel or Russia. Do you want me to do the Russia card? They read a double turn. The Ev says that it's stopping India with military stronger, more credible, but that would trigger the Pakistan scenario. The alliances they don't solve the joy evidence about broader cooperation in U.S., Australia, India, and Japan double on either China's proficiency in providing India with deterrence capabilities. The best strategy. No, they're not. And they would preserve aggression. There's no lights. There's no line to infinite competition and no try to air 19. The two hardly line the contesting lines that reach the China refused to recognize after Russian Jordan with absent instead of voting against government choosing BRI Kazakhstan extended part of the foreign Soviet Asian public treated Russia influence Russia flirted with Japan by the Coral Islands participation in the Senate and Russia attended with the Stargate Cooperation Organization invited India, China, Pakistan last year excited putting name balance Russia fielded 75,000 technically 3,200 soldiers. China was invited to participate not to both allies alliances allied China considered demonstrated to force so it's water mark the card there. The third advantage. Can't solve internal link is incoherent. It's not do so many other things in arms that no needs to have high and growing soft power right now. There's no reason why arms is a key. No food war. Empirics, Pinker, 11, the hunger, and sort of the comment subject under cutting Malawi, Zimbabwe, wars involving them not the dust will cause fatigue. Decision of civil war temperature been rising, and after the possibility of civil wars and war deaths have been folding. Mark the card there. No terror impact. While 16 days goes on, it's that never a couple of government threats threatening our life. The majority are confident in even the best sort of genius they can small attacks that cause much harm and keep political conflict. Case in post action and water wars will cause extinction empirics law field 10 water does not cost war over 2,500. Here's the cost of adaptation of water stretch to the political drawback completely water and a company that under adaptation to reduce stress on water resources. Okay, mark that last for yeah.
So the counterplan's conditional.
Yeah, are the planks conditional?
That's my next question.
Yeah, so we can kick like planks for the ones designed to solve each advantage. Actually, yes and no F. We can yeah, they're all conditional.
Ooh, okay, that's fun. The IAD, the turn on the case, the Rajagopalan evidence says, quote, even a limited one that protects the capital is a sufficient BMD to stick India to their NFU. Given that IADWS are the only US BMD that have been sold, we announced that sale of February this year. Your card was written in 2017. Why wouldn't India's other BMDs solve the impact?
Right, we disagree with that. It's evident the Dunning evidence is very key about how it's about integration of these new BMDs capabilities, i.e. in the fact that there are problems with the current BMD that aren't able to...
Whoa. But the Rajagopalan evidence isn't about material capability. It's in the present tense, and it says that Indian BMD systems, written in the context of the ones they got in 2017, the domestic ones they procured, have already had a positive impact on strategic stability.
Right, we think that's changing. Right, it says it's about that. Yes, that card is about confidence, but we think that the internal link is about NFU. Right. We don't think that
the Dunning evidence doesn't talk about any NFU though.
No. Right. But that line that you're putting is, I don't know. That's just about China. I don't think that's like sufficient to overcome it.
Okay. The topicality argument. What constitutes 25% of contracts under a program?
The entire program, 25% reduction.
Okay, the plan
of FMS and DCS. That is the program.
Why all FMS and DCS?
We can read evidence on that.
I'm asking now though.
Major defense program.
Well, it's hard to cite the cards that we're going to cite because we haven't read them yet.
But okay. That's fine. The advantage counter plan. What's the net benefit / benefits?
The relations decide.
Whoa. The counter plan massively increases our relations with Pakistan and gives Pakistan conventional arms production capability. How would this not completely tank U.S.-India relations?
Or is that the net benefit of the counterplan?
Yeah, because DIB is also net benefit. We keep working with India, so we're allowing them to access the arms sales that they need to be able to continue.
Okay, wait, DIB net benefit. The counterplan reduces arms sales to Japan and Australia.
No, it
Doesn't it?
decreases defense cooperation.
So, okay, decreases
not
defense
arms sales,
cooperation.
not arms sales.
The counterplan reduces economic sanctions on Russia and China. Your
Yes.
impact is based off of economic competition. How does this not link to that net benefit?
Disagree.
Yeah,
because
disagree.
Our evidence is very specific to warfighting capabilities. It's about readiness, not economic strength.
Part of cooperation over the Quad is like we just gave Australia new missile defense systems with the counterplan.
The Haynes evidence is specific about production lines. The Capper and Gungley evidence is about India and keeping F-16 production lines open. The last card is about warfighting readiness as per the closure of production lines.
Okay, let's talk about the defense industry then. So like, I mean, you aren't in the same room. Coronavirus going on. You haven't read a uniqueness card. What gives?
We don't have to. Production lines haven't closed because it's a critical industry.
10 minutes running now. (8:45). Sending it out. Okay, I sent it. Meanwhile, I'm going to give an order, if that's good. The order is going to be modernization, alliances, middle power, the like hyper flexibility argument, relations, the advantage counterplan, T, or never mind, put T on top, my mistake. And then the DIB dissent.
Clarify where T goes.
T goes at the T goes after the middle power's advantage.
Can I get the whole order again?
Yes. I put on top. The order is going to be modernization, then alliances, then middle power, T, the hyper flexibility argument, the advantage counterplan, the relations disadd, the div disadd.
I haven't gotten it yet. Did you send it?
I did send it. Have other people gotten it?
Yeah, I got it.
I have it.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay. Anybody not ready? Sales are key to Indian modernization. That escalates the conflict with China and Pakistan, which goes nuclear. First is the BMD turn. It's inevitable. BMDs are inevitable via S-400. That's Gerard. But IADWs are uniquely escalatory because they create an offensive posture that drives a security dilemma with Pakistan. Indian domestic production solves that torsion. All their internal link evidence is written earlier than the uniqueness evidence. India already has the capabilities. Their evidence requires no impact or impact uniqueness to India. And if you collapse Panda 19, if the numbers use loans to rise Pakistan are trying to the people driving Indians shift away from NFU are born of Pakistan's lowering of nuclear use threshold was both status absorbed in the community of nuclear nations. New Delhi included for a first use of nuclear weapons size. Common can be read a way of effective renders Indians NFU meaningless and no uniqueness for incoming threats and no spillover. Missing one BMD system won't cause NFU repeal, and their evidence doesn't say it will. The card NFU was written in 2017 as a limited posture. Solved, inserting it. Roger Govan 17. And the next argument is that there's no Indo-Pakistan war. Their evidence is about Pakistan reaction doesn't assume Indian involvement, which is our internal link. They say no Indo-China war. It doesn't assume that there's a lack of information because of use of dual-use weapons, which is our internal link. That a double turn argument doesn't make sense because the Dorshner evidence says that it would moderate India by making them more confident about their force, allowing arms control agreements and decreasing Pakistan anxiety. Move on to alliances. Only ending sales prevents a Russia-China alliance that causes extinction through expanding Russian influence, nuke mod and cyber attacks. The first argument is that about the Troy evidence says, but it says that sales to India are specifically key to crowding out Russia. That's the internal link threshold. They said the revisionism double bind doesn't make sense because states are aggressive if it's in their self-interest. Prefer our specific nuanced analysis to general theories of power. Our evidence is specific. They say no alliance. It's about the status quo. Our evidence is predictive about the way that crowd out will affect the alliance. Move on to middle power. Indian leadership is key to solve a litany of existential threat, refugee flows, food and water scarcity, and nuke terror all go nuclear. The first argument is that there's no internal link. The Dorshner evidence says that the reducing reliance on the U.S. allows India to achieve broader leadership, which is the key internal link here. They say that soft power, that there's soft power now, no leadership. It doesn't exist because they look like they're a follower. That's the second card on the advantage. They say no food wars, about the status quo, not conflict in the future. With the declining food, they say no terror doesn't assume our scenario, which is nuclear waste would be deployed in the heart of a city. That's a relatively low-cost option. They say no. They say no water wars. The decrease of water is happening more rapidly now than in previous examples, which is the key internal link here. And India is key to the adaptation the card is about. Move on to T. We meet 1AC. Joy says 11 billion to India. That's 25.5 of FMS. State Department 19. Under FMS, the U.S. managers transfer of 43 billion per year. DDD says provides approvals of 136 billion per year. And we meet their evidence is about one weapon system. We decrease multiple helicopter sub, etc. And substantial means of considerable amount, not root any particular numerical value. That's plus 4. Substantial means considerable amount of design implies a specific number of cutoff, or maybe substantial in one situation will not be in another. And prefer our interpretation. One is goalpost shifting. There are an infinite contrived percentages to confine the app to acts from discussion the topic by creating a moving target for F teams. To me, 2 is predictability. Our evidence cites core precedent. That's most predictable because it's what lawmakers use. 3 is functional limits. Check alliance. They said politics, fill and process counterplan, etc. All guarantee some degree of negative engagement. Prefer reasonability. Competing interrupts crowd out substance, which internal link turns their offense. A-spec. It's bad. No resolution basis makes it unpredictable. It's more hazard to go from fixed cross-fix checks and specification arguments eliminate substance. And the hyperflex argument. No hyperflex. Plan text was almost entirely the same. That's the basis for negative engagement, which means it's predictable. Bad arguments are still bad. They should have to win. Hard debate is good debate. And generics and arms field key arguments solve all their arguments. Move on to the vanishment. Permutation due both shields link. Permutation due the counterplan can't solve modernization. U.S. defense technology causes an India shift to full spectrum deterrence. A form of weaponry is uniquely key since it forces Pakistan into arms race, and that's Iran and Ahmed. U.S. tech is key. It says that conventional strikes more effectively enable during ACAWs and other surveillance capabilities, and if they can't solve Indo-China war, only ending arms sales can overcome fundamental imbalances. The conflict that promote arms race and go nuclear. That's a barrier. It doesn't solve Russia-China relations, forcing Russia out of India, causes them to turn to Chinese as a strategic asset. That's up to it links to that benefit. One is relations key. The counterplan massively increases our defense relation with Pakistan, seen by India as us abandoning them as a partner, so they have no incentive to cooperate on China. Two is DIB. DACP reduces cooperation with Japan and Australia. Either that reduces arms sales and it links, or reducing sanctions increases Russia and China DIB growth, which Johnson says trigger their impact. And Kondo is bad, encourages run gun strategies that favor the negative, disincentivizes good research and obvious clash dispo, solves their offense voting issue for skew and deterrence voting issue when they're going to kick the planks that link to that benefit. Move on to the relations. The plan makes relations sustainable. That's Lonnie and Brian 19. And it can be powerful in the faces economic challenges, capacity deficit, geographic recent incentive to hedge these U.S. leaders continue to refer to India as an ally because the U.S. thinks in binary terms India does not fit to either model. That India would never accept any asymmetric relationship because it is too proud. It cannot fit the asymmetric capability aggregation model because it is much weaker to reduce such relation. U.S. must reduce the scope of the relationship rising expectation damage relationship contributing to recurring India fatigue, distorting strategic calculation, working on some interests will require relation and expectation. There's little evidence that mutual defense to conflict, and the plan solves the impact that distortion. The plan makes cooperation more credible due to a rebalance in regional power dynamics. And the apathy that geopaying the status quo creates moral hazard, which swamps cooperation, precludes the internal link, and regardless of status quo relations, embolden India hegemonic relations, making any cooperation unreliable. That's her feed causes Asian countries to embrace China and reinforce military disparities, making either abandonment or all-out conflict inevitable. But we don't need to win broader claims about U.S.-India relations. Kagan says that Russia-China alliance erodes the international order and kills our alliance structure by undermining military superiority. And we solve the global order. That's the thesis. That's the thesis of the third advantage. And no internal link for inevitable. That's Krishna 19. The U.S. would have to consider ways to give away for TNT, Washington, and New Delhi are in the process of working out multiple nuclear power plants. And India to keep on India has a deep pockets, and the U.S. needs money to keep its factories running, piecing off India is a good politics and not unique economic turbulence recently proves that conflict is inevitable. In military overstretch dooms deterrence, and that's Reg 19. Insurgency, research, and priorities, Pakistan terrorist attack causing India to attempt to deal with terrorism, insurgency, and external threats. Each dismantle the distinction resource and force structures sustaining India budget continues to shape doctrines about blurring of external and internal security as meant to 5 Indian national security advisors have been former chiefs of domestic intelligence has not translated national security as security coming to the forefront in India politics. Politicians have little incentive to vote FBI bills and move on to did. No link, the app is tied to greater trade turbulence like aluminum tariffs and sales uncertainty is inevitable. S400 and CAS approved reduction isn't perceived lack of client relationships facilitates greater trust and cooperation. That's distortion in Lebanon. Turkey, Philippines, inevitable defense volatility thumbs Space Force. Iran escalation, new NDAA means uniqueness overwhelms the Corona thumbs. The plans have actually been shut down both in India and the US. Proves that either relief solves or the link is inevitable. And the link is inevitable because India has been shifting to domestic modernization. That's the distortion evidence, but it's not enough to trigger the internal into our scenario because they still rely on the U.S. and tech industry self. That's Call 19. Tech altering the defense practices will resemble new companies algorithms and AI will decide conflicts. The Pentagon is preparing a reforming policy. Suppliers can learn from digital distributors, leading companies that remain the IP as combination of extreme consequence, precision, and operational limits will of data will take balance. Companies will have a global dominant base they use the digital disrupt have pioneered and unique. No impact. U.S. bounce back huge after 2008 primacy restored. Charlotte 20. There is no reason to believe the downturn will drive the U.S. standing. There is little evidence that the downturn will hit the U.S. disproportionately hard. The U.S. stock market has fallen less than most other stock markets and investors have bid up. The U.S. dollar, given its safe haven status, which has risen, how the major powers have declined. But the U.S. is not one of them. If markets have one voice, it would be saying the chorus of American decline, market decline. I'm good for crossing.
Okay. Reason to reject the team?
Conduct.
Okay. Why is hard debate good debate?
Because it encourages innovation and encourages research.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Whoa. But Kondo makes that research impossible by dissuading
yeah, sure.
2As from researching your specific counterpoints that you would read in World of Dispo.
Okay, the Lawani and Byrne evidence on the relations page, it only seems to indicate that U.S. thinks about the alliance in binary terms. Why does it say that it makes the relationship sustainable?
It says that the U.S. thinking of the alliance in binary terms leads to them demanding things of India that India can never fulfill, which inevitably collapses relations. The line that you're inevitably going to ask for is rising expectations that continue to go unmet may damage or at least slow progress in the relationship, contributing to the recurring problem of India fatigue in the United States and distorting strategic calculations, which is directly talking to the
what are examples of rising expectations?
So, for example, we would argue that this is something that's developing now, that we're going to pressure them to adopt more and more.
Also,
what are the cards that this acts about?
Sam, like the S400 purchase, for example, would be an example of rising expectations because we expected them not to purchase the S400 and threaten sanctions, but
that already happened. That already happened.
Yeah, you asked for an example.
That proves that India is not going to be able to fit in our mold of deterrence, which is what is necessary for what your impact evidence is talking.
The card about like this. You didn't read the Lodway card or the Krishnan card or the Terreno card.
I didn't read the Lodwin card. I did read the Krishnan card.
Okay.
I did not read the Tornado card, but I made
And you
that
didn't read
argument
the
as an
second.
analytic.
You didn't read the second reg card, right?
I did not read the second read.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
You have frozen.
I saw my timer at 123.
Yeah. I'll see.
Okay, I'll call him because his
Okay.
internet might have cut off.
If we're doing this, does anybody mind if I get a drink of water meanwhile? Like, fill up my cup. Okay, I'm gonna take that as a no.
Hello?
Sorry, my Wi-Fi just died for a second. My Wi-Fi died at 1 minute. Can we start cross-sex again there?
Is that 120?
Oh, yeah, I stopped it at 123.
Whatever.
Whatever.
123 was when it cut out for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Fair. I don't entirely know when I cut out. Sorry, my Wi-Fi, my router just died. I had to restart it.
Sam went to get water. He'll be back in a sec.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
David, you said it was like 123.
Yeah, 123.
Okay.
You all good? You ready?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. The Christensen card says that pissing off India isn't good politics and indicates that things like cutting off relationships is a bad idea. That was obviously the AF. How does this not flow neg?
Your internal link is predicated off of CATSA sanctions. We'd say that this sets up a double bind argument, which means that like even if there are things that piss off India, those things will inevitably not like be the
But
US
the
will
only
inevitably
way-
try to play.
Wait, obviously. The only way to stop CATSA sanction is to if India actually goes ahead and gets the purchases of F-16.
No. Your weapon, your card is a speculative statement about how some policymakers think that there might be a QPQ for F-16s and CATSA sanctions.
Where
There's
have you
no
read any evidence about this?
I'm saying
This card
your
just seems to flow
evidence.
neg.
Your evidence is a
No,
speculative.
the evidence makes a future predictive claim about how there's a quid pro quo for the F-16 sale is the only way to stop CATSA sanctions. This card says that
No.
CATSA sanctions
No,
are good.
this card
No.
says that CATSA sanctions will be waived inevitably. Your evidence makes a speculative claim that F-16 sales and CATSA sanctions could be a QPQ.
Wait,
Obviously,
yeah.
we'd say that's just U.S. policymakers posturing to try to get extract
This
more things
card
out of
doesn't
India.
have a warrant in it and has no qualifications. Why should it be trusted?
It says that pressures on India
Whoa,
or
whoa.
on U.S. policymakers will inevitably cause them to waive the CATSA sanction.
Also, we have read the same author and same article as your 1NC card. It is
Okay,
literally
fair.
the same thing. So your author is also unqualified.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, we have Ellis at like 9:50 something or 9:30.
9:30.
9:30 starting now. What was your warrant for why the relations to set is non-unique?
With it was the same warrant as in the 10 Riero card. It was economic turbulence. No,
Economic turbulence.
economic conflict.
Okay.
Wait, sorry. So you're making the argument that like Russia will invest in India, and that's why it solves the internal link about the alliance with like
No,
Russia and
what?
China? Wait, am I misunderstanding something?
Possibly. Like, I mean what I said in the speech. I'm not liable to clarify. If you'd like to ask in cross-ex, I guess there's no more cross-exes at this time, but I guess we'll figure it out.
Rishon's got one.
Question.
$325. I'll send it out. All right. The order is going to be sorry, I need to mute myself in Discord. The new AF's bad stuff at the top, the advantage counter plan, the case page in the order of the India modernization advantage, the Russia-China alliance advantage, and then the middle power advantage.
Okay, give me just a sec.
Okay, good. The negative should get infinite flexibility, otherwise they can't adequately check the affirmative because they're making a bunch of new stuff. Obviously, the plan text has been modified, which changes our ability to engage in. They have new advantages. Obviously, hard debate is good debate. No, it just makes it easier for the affirmative, and we should get infinite flexibility, otherwise they can't test the affirmative. Now, the advantage counter plan, it solves the entirety of the affirmative, or the affirmative solves nothing. First, it solves the China-Russia alliance. The evidence that they have read here, as per the 1EC rehighlighting that we have done, says that it's about problems with US pressuring them and a four-way alliance with Australia, Japan, India, and the US. The counter would resolve that because it would result in the United States getting rid of that cooperation with Australia and India, which Japan, not India. It maintains a cooperation with India, which means that it's still able to resolve broader concerns. And obviously, they can't solve broader U.S. containment. There's a bunch of things like the U.S. having warships within the region, doing exercise with other people, etc. All those things make their impact inevitable. It means they cannot resolve it, and it solves problems with Pakistan. It has them U.S. invest in Pakistan to maintain deterrence. Build up with India doesn't matter if we also build up with Pakistan at the same time, because it maintains the crisis stability. It also solves a third advantage. They have not sufficiently answered this. It modifies current arms sales to India to include economic offsets, i.e. investment in their economy, which builds them up as a middle power. Their evidence doesn't make the distinction for why it has to be key for them to be self-sufficient. The difference between the counterplan and the plan is that the counterplan invests in their DIB and lets them get to self-sufficiency quicker while maintaining the broader relationship, because it's not cutting them off. The plan just cuts them off and says, here, you have to engage in your own relationship. Permutation do both links to that benefit. It reduces sales to India, which is in addition to the broader relationship. Permutation to the counterplan. LOL. The counterplan literally bans the plan. Make a better argument. There's a voting issue for sevens because it makes it impossible to be negative. They say this solves the middle power. Yes, we obviously do solve the middle power on modernization argument because we invest in India's defense industrial, which maintains crisis stability. There's things like economic offsets that we can put, which help them invest in their economy. The 1C evidence that they read on this is very clear about the reason why India needs to be a soft power is by getting it access to more export markets and having things like building up their economy. They say U.S. tech is key. U.S. tech is not key. It's incoherent because they read evidence on the case page or made arguments on the case page about why Russia would be able to fill in. That obviously proves that modernization is to some extent inevitable, which would mean more on the case page, but they obviously haven't given a reason for why economic offsets to build up their GIB, which they have agreed is good, would not be able to solve. It would obviously resolve the moderation internally because it would still be the U.S. helping them get to the first place, and it wouldn't embolden them because the U.S. would eventually stop selling if India modernized completely, but it wouldn't disrupt relations. They say it can't solve Indo-China war. Yes, it would, because we would result the confrontation by evidence we have things like crisis stability, the no solve relations. Yes, we would obviously solve relations. It would help a broader cooperation with India by investing in their DAB, which I explained above. Links to the net benefit. No, it doesn't, because we maintain sales to India, which is what our evidence cites as the key internal. They have read literally zero evidence saying making the argument about Pakistan actually retaliating, which means you should hold the line on technical concessions. Conditionality, it's a good interpretation. We get what we did when they read a new F. Critical thinking versus strategic choice and adaptation information piece. Making ideological lexicon is on the top with hundreds of absences for the counter-interpretation on topicalities. Logic decision. The judge shouldn't vote for the best policy. Anything else is real world, which turns to often sees innovation, risk averse debaters, things conditions key to innovation, and counterpoints responding to and making counter interpretation doesn't solve our offense. Can force us to go for stuff. Offense is non-unique. See data center make offense inevitable. Efficiency solves concede reasonability. You shouldn't vote on this dumb theory because it incentivizes substance crowd out. Now the Indo-Pak war first at the top. They don't solve any of this. They have made the argument that Russia will be able to fill, and that obviously makes their impact inevitable because India will still be able to modernize completely. They also have indicated that Israel fills in France and honorarium 18. Israel has completely such a role in the future war. India has become a key defense rotationally technically playing a major role in its modernization. Parties like 2016 represent 49% of Israel's arms export. India's ground forces also have sent Israel weapons for upgrades to Israel's supplies. Full gifts to India's defense with New Delhi seeking to modernize Israel is well placed. The argument they make about on the case about modernization and IDWS is all inevitable because it proves that they'll just buy things like missile defense from Russia and continue to modernize like that, which they've isolated as a key internal link and enhance Russian security cooperation turns the first advantage. US tech isn't chaotic in 18. Russian collaboration India will help amplification for stability South Asia. The collaboration with negative consequences for also purposing India Pakistan heralding an offensive missiles strategic stability now because of Pakistan's nuclear capability of control returns because into books of finance India Russian collaboration. What after Pakistan with the capital counter militarization with nuclear weapons result will be reached arms system lowering the nuclear threshold hostilities would flare up. Pakistan wants to deliver fire first use TNWs into nuclear production test for tactical strategic nuclear weapon. Mark that evidence that strategic nuclear weapon. Now the Now, obviously, I explained above why all the domestic production. They've also conceded that a few key arguments. First is that getting rid of the NFU would result in massive instability with India, because and Pakistan, because they would feel that they were not protected from a U.S. first strike. They've also they've not contested that argument, but they've also conceded that it's already perceived as not credible. That makes that any of their conflict scenarios are definitely inevitable in the first place. They've made no argument for why they would be able to resolve that, and the not going for that broader IADWS term, but it just proves that they cannot solve. There's no India-Pakistan cooperation. The evidence that we read here is very good. Indicates that Pakistan's India action motivation disproved. There's been no mainland terror attacks and Pakistani pressures proved for domestic political power. The fact that we've been increasing arms sales and India still hasn't acted as aggressively as they're talking about proves that there won't be escalation in the first place. No Indo-Pak war. Scenario 920 on February 26. IF attacked a major state and this destroyed the myth that any action could lead to nuclear conflict. There's have been taken more seriously than war itself. So intellectual politician thread escalation detail remained unmoved. Reality is Pakistan's professional stream command structure displayed by their professional Pakistan are realist. India's doctrines are trained India being the first to use Pakistan news. Their country politically responsible. Therefore, eschew such rhetoric. Indo-Pak war went escalating quickly. 3-5 history is cause for optimism. India works taking and fighting to reach Pakistan for working with no escalation. 2 years later, instead of this way, India lacked military options and military bases would take it to call in India's military. They use help by urging both to start attacking India. Pakistan's military is not a rational body. Understand escalation. Nuclear weapons fundamentally change war. Pakistan understand nuclear weapons. But avoid referring to India's nuclear cable. His aim is theoretical issues designed to please domestic audiences. Again, on this, I know in war stuff they cannot resolve this. They haven't given a reason why dual use tech actually means that they would escalate, and they've not sufficiently answered the argument they've made about emboldenment. Obviously, India would still be emboldened if they had their own domestic capability, because they wouldn't be restrained by the U.S. in any way, which means they could be as aggressive as they wanted to do. And the Dorser evidence has no resolution to that. The one EC evidence you don't know in the the evidence is all hype, all provocation, low level nuclear weapons rationally prevent escalation. Their evidence is about sort of nuclear incursions that have already occurred, events that have made the more prone to stability, but they can't check that. No China war, interdependence, institution, company, Gulf, Solani, 70 companies enough for themselves. The China, Pakistan, stakeholders, to open economic or multi-lateral institutions. The China does not rise to the level of rivalry in Europe, neither Beijing, New Delhi, significance rivalry, both regard to the instabilities means static state fees, conventional non-nuclear arsenals means to addressing aspiration. China, India share a culture of treating uses instruments to turn rather than more nuke postures for political use or not military postures. Now, the Russia-China advantage, they cannot solve this. Their evidence is about broader cooperation, which means all the stuff I did on the counterpoint proves that they can't solve it. Can't solve broader containment of places like China. The narrow evidence that we didn't want to see is fantastic. It says that things like competition, they're competing against each other for shared geopolitical influence, like territorial conflicts, which Aaron evidence gives a long juice. Second is imbalance. They've seen combat exercises that have dramatically higher numbers of Russian forces, which is that it's imbalance, and they don't trust. The Kremlin decided by data source from Huawei, but back to us because of their security forces were concerned about Chinese espionage, so they obviously wouldn't want to cooperate. There's no trust. China's too much to lose. Aaron in 19 history, geography, military, Anton Cordial, authorities, Strangelberg, and post Shah hardly said to build trust. Royal and Caspian can afford direct which into company's second largest trade with the US and EU accounts at least 5 times the value of its Russian economy. It's a greater benefit for liberal international economic order of China than China's very advantage. The orders also guaranteed the United States China's likely not like to fall. Russia into an anti-Western crusade. China, Russia fears being absorbed. Liver than 14 years if you're the motherland become an economic conditional alliance will leave Russia to Beijing open the door for observation versus first into China history and long bargaining and partnership with mutual suspicion. China resents Moscow's sales to rivals like Vietnam. Russia fears appears to pirate systems, or it proves that the arguments we made about broader cooperation. Now the middle power stuff. Look, LOL. You can read their evidence that they have read here. The GPC's evidence cites a bunch of things in green that they should be doing. I'll read them here. GPC 70 competition of internal factor window set of prerequisites. India also need to build its best trade link to wages, overseas capital, which will need to be largely given partners with other nations. But the private sector doing so will require you to pick up the face of execution future given duties. How do we start raising India's profile? India still perceive follower rather than lead. India will need to engage much more actively. Indian military power is regional fast. Market evidence are regional at best. That disproves it, because if we win the fill and claim that from other countries, India will still be consistently perceived as a follower and not be able to do things for other countries. Obviously, their argument about modernization inevitably takes that out. The endorsement evidence has no answer to that. And sharing defense tech boosts Indian economic dynamism, which is a prerequisite to their ability to influence. Allison Bell 11, the user changes technology, edge defense technologies, access cutting edge technology, critical Indian economic capacity, Indian modernize the government, controls technology, export controls in defense access to use side benefits, Indian firms, Indian power, Neville, Sure, 18 Indians described as model support country that makes poor use of the pictures, makes India fierce following national church and has reputation for corruption, poverty, hostility, pollution, labor alliance against women, need to raise value, and state German culture, future of that party sector efforts. Mark that evidence at private sector efforts. Cross 6.
Right now I'm on mute. Are you good?
Yep.
Okay, I think I just missed it. Where was the fill-in stuff in the 1 and C from the first
yeah.
advantage?
Yeah. Here, I'll read it to you. We said, no warrant for why U.S. arms are key. They can just buy from Israel or Russia.
Okay, that's fine. Let's go on to this sort of like arms control, that Pakistan won't agree to arms control because of domestic pressures. My understanding of this is that this is an extension of the, the Kapoor and Ganguly evidence, right? Which cites domestic pressures. This evidence is more talking about, in my reading, about India's increased nuclear capability, which is the very thing that we are saying collapses arms control. So I guess the question is, why is this a warrant for Pakistan not agreeing to arms control?
Wait, I don't understand what you're saying. The 1AC evidence that we have says that Pakistan won't want to act, and then we've read more evidence saying that India still views it as a credible deterrent. Like, so there's no reason why they would want to be escalatory.
Okay.
And
That's
part 3 evidence.
wait,
also
what?
That re-ask the question. I might have misunderstood.
Okay, yeah. So via to answer the Dorshner argument, you made this claim that Pakistan wouldn't agree to arms control, right? Because of like domestic pressures, is what I believe you said. The only card that pardon?
I don't think I said that.
Oh, okay, that's fine then. Then let's look at the advantage counterplan on the where are we here? There we are. The advantage counterplan. There's this moment where you talk about the how does what you said you read evidence about how it increases crisis stability with China. What is this evidence? How does this operate? Why does that solve the China scenario?
Yeah, like we think that the 1AC evidence that we read about relations with Pakistan and the evidence that we read on the Setsov evidence, we think that's sufficient to prove that it.
Okay, explain to me the scenario for a material thing that the counterplan does that solves conflict with China.
Because it would increase the balancing of places like Pakistan, which would balance against India. And also,
wait, but why does that prevent conflict with China?
Because it's like a stabilizing thing for the region.
So just because we make India fear Pakistan, India will no longer have misperception with China that causes Indo-China conflict to escalate?
No, I don't think that's what I said.
Okay, then explain it to me.
We've read a plank saying that we should engage in talks regarding strategic stability with Russia and China.
Great. Why does that solve?
Because if it's about strategic stability, then they're less likely to go to conflict. We are talking.
Is India involved in these talks?
Yeah.
Wait, but the plank says engage in talks regarding strategic stability with Russia and China. It doesn't say anything about India.
It doesn't need to.
So now the counterplan does things that it isn't in the counterplan text?
No, because it doesn't exclude India.
Okay, that's fine. That's crossing.
Okay, the doc sent. The DIB just said the relations just said. You let me know when you'll have it.
Yeah, I'm good.
I need a second. Okay, I'm good.
On the DIB case, we'll concede that there's no link. I'll answer the two arguments that apply here. First, he said that the sales, the S400 sales inevitable. That doesn't matter. The counterplan resolves it. It means that our sales are inevitable, and the QPQ solves it. That's the Christian as the page. The impact defense card. There's no actual warrant in this card, so you should disregard it. And just more impact will work on the other page. It doesn't apply because it doesn't assume the world order today. It's fundamentally different because of fundamentally different. It doesn't assume things like China rise. The resistance page. Certainty is key to top China, where reductions in leadership in the IR mean that China will collapse the global order. It's inevitable. War is inevitable because they have conceded the claim that China is revisionist, which means to try or die for containment. The only way to prevent a war is containment. As long as we win the revisionist debate, which they have not contested in the 2AC. It outweighs. First is probably first is time for it to happen. It happens now because it's about radicalizing India's ability to overcome stress in the IOR, which is the only way to check escalation within the region, which is what impact evidence is about. Second is they always in probability. They have not done enough link work, which indicates that they would reduce every single arm sales as per their answer to T subs, which obviously means that it's sufficient to overcome that. And like time frame, yeah, happens now. Okay. Independently, abandoned fears cause Indian nuclear intervention is an arm breaker. Shift 10. relationship in Indo more than nuclear war than arms control. Any way to look at Washington and protect her and China would be American call for restraint on nuclear weapons and strong U.S.-India relations to de-escalate India-Pakistan conflict. Trusted communication vital to mediation. Paragraph 14. India, Pakistan, and U.S. government did appeal to immediate conflict. A major terrorist attack using force government intelligence and leader of course. Let's say inadequacy in intelligence counter terror and Arizona organization cooperation, but the beginning risk of escalation. It turns the alliance and stuff because it means that we can check back because it becomes so strong in the region there, and it turns the lost advantage because it increases Indian leadership by increasing their strength. The line will end. At the top, they say that the plan solves cooperation is high now, specifically because of U.S. arms sales. It indicates that Trump and Modi relationship is built around the sale of weapons such as helicopters and IEDs. The relationship of the relationship is the lodestar for the relations. That's one. There's a couple of links. First one is the reverse calls. The entire relationship is built up after the U.S. drawdown relationship with Pakistan. It's built up through arms sales. Second is CATSA policy. We both agree that the CATSA is bad for the relationship. The only way that sure doesn't happen is the F-16 QPQ that they cancel. That's the one. Christians have you can group all of the games. Obviously, Ellis did way better case fitting in the 2NC, which takes in a co-op doesn't solve about U.S.-India relations. When see kind of China and arms are critical. Resolve the issue in a key to Indian foreign policy concession in Coin 11. Arms are the best way for U.S. or deciding the U.S. India releasing events that are pace of the friendship with the U.S. was beginning consistent news foreign policy cut back and infiltration in Pakistan. Obama tried to bring Pakistan up by the head of the important renewing cooperation in India, but has to talk to the Indians counter-terrorist a lot of questions on what they get. It's not able to do such a generating cooperation about the equipment until we're worth to Indian officers set aside a Western supply the Indian military market turn this opportunity. Yes, Indian military ties that mark the cart there, and our unique accounts for both all for other factors relationship and anchored by arms and every other issue. Just put the relations on the brink only a sudden shift away from institutional negotiated approach to RSS recent link, Libras 18. Just celebrity is India possibly when it consists of the related in the shadow with imperatives and the American political will fundamentally acting catalyst and critical catalyst of China that lucrated our market close about place a partnership for party place and institution negotiated part under Trump the strategic embrace the remaining extending good cooperation which is well in a turbulence given converted diversity despite any of the strong institutional architected need to deliver benefits that caution not be wise allows to get without putting nurturing structural compacts made with her. They say that the arms sales embolden this argument is incoherent. Our alliance with China is key to using the cooperation, combination, question relations, and spills over. Mountain 17. Victory based on relationship to the government able China convert the pace of cooperate and areas strategic of the West and then to choose the impact of the U.S. India our partner that each sees a role in strategic consider China could offer U.S. India partnership and is seen cooperate greater excited to develop new defense security space of the IOR convert which enable effect the rest of the partner and should have been watched closely in India. Mark the card there. They say that the war the way first example this card is incoherent. It's irrelevant. We're reading the same article. We make the future predictions with him that F-16 keeping up the rate highlighting doesn't actually say that it's an and it's super link. It says that pissing off India is a really bad idea for the alliance, which obviously means that I think they say it's not unique. You can cross-play the uniqueness card I read on the plan solves that, but sharing defense technology boosts Indian economic dynamism. I listen to 11. U.S. retains technology and defense technology access to coding and technology. Any economic competitiveness in India modernization the government controls technology. These expert controls in defense having access to U.S. technology benefit in it first and stagnant growth that shifts India towards a hostile Western case. 11 addressing the United States aggressive way to powers and national because result of explicit term excellence laid off in a nuclear arsenal to China, Pakistan, extended target Indian nationalists, India, China, they were saying Hindu fundamentalists may result in overtly hostile foreign policy and the doomsday deterrence extend out behind India's military strength is a disaster right now, but the U.S. is shoring up commitments to rising Indian military strength. The key to Czech is built up in the IOR. The U.S. needs a single wing, single swing state to win that war with China. That state is India. The answer to their card is non-unique because India's military isn't overstretched now. It's weak for other reasons. The key internal link is certainty. Smith 19. He was thinking Modi's first term perspective, and he said there was a needs in Delhi to field and started Trump objective related, but India, how can hesitate in Washington, but over actually somebody corporate said to India, warp was that I had one being a transactional cooperation, getting easy for many nations, and it diminished by the partnership limits in a shared where separation of Washington purpose until I was synonymous with the loss of autonomy and position CASA or revenue here objective was in Delhi, however. Cut that in Delhi.
Okay. We have 8:45.
You're muted in Discord. Close. Yeah. Should have answered. I don't think there's anything I missed.
Oh, you missed a lot, Simon.
Oh fuck. Am I? No, you did. My bad.
5:45. Cards are sent.
Can we get an order?
Yeah. The order is the modernization advantage, the alliances advantage, the middle power advantage, the advantage counterplan, the relations disadvantage. Okay. Is anybody not ready? Indian modernization triggers regional misperception, sparks conflict with Pakistan and China, which both go nuclear due to lack of general constraints. The Russia and Israel argument is absolutely nonsensical. U.S. tech is definitely key. That's the thesis of the Zarar evidence, which was extended as an answer to the turn, indicates that U.S. IADWS uniquely emboldens India and increases their capabilities against Pakistan, causes arms racing because it's perceived as changing regional balance of power, which they haven't read a card that says India or Russia causes, especially because Russia is already a major patron of India and they're their largest arms provider. U.S. tech is also key. That's the piece of Lee and Z evidence from the solvency contention indicates we're selling them things like AWACS drones, and naval-based capabilities that all magnify regional misperceptions and cannot be provided by other regional providers. That's the piece of Lee and Z evidence. Russia doesn't turn to the case because their argument is purely speculative and doesn't assume those specific capabilities. India is uniquely emboldened by U.S. relations, which will be on the relations disadvantage, which Russia doesn't access. The NFU isn't credible in the status quo. The Ahmed evidence says the U.S. can solve the NFU argument by increased U.S. capabilities erode India's NFU and increase their confidence. The plan solves by increasing regional credibility to deal with arms sales, which also solves the Russia argument, which is the piece of Ahmed and Ashraf evidence. Yes, impact to Indo-Pak. Pakistani misperception causes a reliance on TNWs, which makes it uniquely escalatory, which is the Meso-Kami evidence, which undermines Pakistani moderation since they don't think India would come to the table. The areas for cooperation argument does take out the dissad, though. It proves that we solve mistrust, but our impact is based on miscalc, which would erode that. The alliance advantage, not going for it, no alliance. The Dorsher evidence solves the Indian emboldenment argument. Moderation, a plan creates moderation via arms control by increasing Indian credibility and forced negotiations. That's the Dorsher evidence. Concede the Arad evidence, which says China doesn't have an incentive to rise, which takes out the impacts of the India dissad because it says that they think that alliance is bad and they have no reason to try to challenge the international order, which is the impact of the dissad. The middle power advantage, GPC evidence sucks, not going for it. The advantage counterplan, permutation do both, solves the vast majority of it by making the AF look like a reduction in that same quad strategy. It obviously doesn't solve Indo-China miscalc. Our evidence indicates that U.S. tech is specifically key, which is the Lee and Z evidence and the piece of Zarar evidence, which I did on the case, which all magnify key threat perceptions that can't be solved by talks. They don't think that those talks are credible, which our evidence obviously assumes. They obviously don't solve Pakistan. The warrant is that they help Pakistan in the arms race and then don't invite India to the peace talks that would be able to diffuse that tension, which obviously magnifies the risk of everything because a plan incentivizes Pakistani arms racing and doesn't do anything to actually mediate the ensuing conflict as a result of that arms racing, which is the thesis of the first advantage. Talks fail because they don't involve India, which was cross-links. It obviously links to that benefit. The counterplan literally supercharges the Pakistani military, which magnifies every Indian threat perception and is perceived as a giant slap in the face to their military, which undermines the effectiveness of arms sales as a reassurance, since they're no longer seen as increasing India's capability relative to regional rivals. I'm not going to have time for Kondo Sam. Sorry, relations is set. At the top, the turns case arguments are solved by the AF. Deterrence prompts Chinese misperceptions, which causes miscalc, which is done on the first advantage. But there's a probability deficit because their evidence about F-16s and CATSA is purely speculative. Read their card after the round, which means the AF is the only path to certainty. They don't. The new scenario they read at the bottom. The plan solves the nuclear arms racing scenario via Dorsher, which was above the Indo-Pak war turns case argument. U.S. mediation fails. That's Ahmed. Sales make us look less credible because we're perceived as playing sides, which
takes out that argument. Relations are fundamentally unsustainable. India doesn't fit any conventional views of an alliance, so increasing sales make relations built on shaky footing because capability deficits and rising expectations as a result of those arms deals will never be able to be fulfilled because of a lack of alliance partnership. And economic turbulence independently dooms relations. Tariffs and stripping India of preferential economic status through Sereno 323 on the economic front. U.S.-India relations with the White House stripping India of its preferential trade status. U.S. tariffs on steel driven retaliation from Modi. Medi has steadfastly rolled back the slow liberalization of trade. The Modi government's income pure not approach create a huge variation in duties. If they're right that it's priced in or that it's distinct, that proves relations are compartmentalized. Law book 19 India's relationship is a strategic partnership like alliances. Partnerships involve lower commitment interests may overlap or diverge depending on the issue. India's embracing ambiguity. India partnerships not felt via habits of cooperation. Bilateral relationship lacks a mature partnership. The relationship contours rife with ambiguity. It appears to want to consult but operate in parallel rather than jointly. It means the plan doesn't end military collaboration that would be key to their internal link. And military overstretch dooms any effective deterrence, which takes out the internal link. Bridge evidence is that insurgencies sap Indian military resources, budget shrinks, and bad advisors all make Indian deterrence coordination impossible. That the only answer they have to this is certainty is key, but certainty doesn't mean that they have more money in their national resources, which is also solved by the app for the Dorshner card because U.S. arms deals drain those resources further. And weak coordination thumbs to kill CMR. Reg 19 India lack of effective coordination for joint and operability. For example, lack of CDS patterns and CMR front action. CDS integrated defense staff fighter court doesn't affect absence like contradictory about readiness. Lack of CDS allowing the army to search for other two services like unified defense management structure. Skew CMR. Lack of jointness dooms effective deterrence. Reg 19 the U.S. might have reconsidered some that India will help protect. Had lack of jointness within the military limits the achievable a level of interoperability. The Indian military faces your difficulty require to coordinate joint force operations absent public Indian strategy. There are lingering suspicions inside the Pentagon.
325. Okay. The order is going to be the advantage counterplan, then the middle power advantage, the relations dissad, the alliance advantage, then the modernization advantage. Are we all good? We're not going for, we'll concede the permutation, just a test of competition. And obviously, the fact that the counterplan can't solve proves that they can't solve the advantage either. There's no offense on this flow. The middle power advantage, they've functionally conceded a straight turn to the case. They read the GPC evidence. Their only answer to the GPC evidence just to just say that it is bad. They are right. It is bad. But the warrant, it says for the way that India needs to be able to get on the global stage is by economic competitiveness, which is not sufficient now. But they've also conceded the card that I read that said U.S. technology is key to broader Indian economic integration. That is a straight turn to the affirmative. It proves that if the U.S. invests in India and sells them defense technology, which are heavily offsetted as per all of our evidence, that allows them to build up their economic capabilities. That's key to their global leadership and power projection. It's key to solve a litany of threats that they've read for us: the food, war, terror, etc. They didn't concede impact defense. They just conceded no internal link in this straight turn. That means that we solve extinction, because otherwise the terrorists will go nuclear. India is key to restrain that. That turns the entirety of the case, because incursions against places like China will increase the propensity for miscalculation, and they have just conceded impact, which means that it definitely outweighs all of it, especially since they made the argument that it is incredibly short-term. The relations disadvantage, it outweighs in terms of the case. U.S. nationalists are the key thing that constrains it. U.S. get pressure on places like India to not want to escalate, but our evidence says that if the U.S. were to cut off support, it would no longer be able to restrain places like India and China, and the U.S. would not be able to pressure to not build up nuclear weapons against places like Pakistan. That proves that we solve the impact of the affirmative with things like maintaining crisis stability. Their only turning that they've isolated is India escalating, but the U.S. will be able to prevent them from wanting to do that in their process, especially because they have the ability to threaten India that they're not going to continue selling them weapons. We've seen that we definitely outweigh. Additionally, they have conceded the card that Simon read below about why why arms sales to India help build up their economy, but absent that, they'll shift to a strategy of nationalism, which means that they will obviously be more likely to escalate conflicts in places like China and Pakistan, which means that we control the scope of escalation, and it's try or die for the maintaining the relationship with India. They say that AFSOLVs, that doesn't make any sense. They can't have an isolated reason why they would solve the broader miscalculation scenario. They can't prevent that miscalculation from occurring. They've conceded India's NFU is not perceived as credible, and that it's and that makes crisis instability much more likely. That means that it's key to the U.S. to be a conflict mediator between both countries. Only we have evidence that the U.S. will act as a mediator for places like Pakistan. So even if they are right that India will act more aggressively, they don't have a scenario for escalation if Pakistan doesn't escalate in the first place. I kind of answered the arguments they made about F-16s being speculation above, because our evidence does make the determinate claim that if we were to use F-16, it would be a torpedo relationship, because it proves these as something as part of broader CASTA sanctions. They can't solve arms raising, which I answered above. I'll also extend the Indo-China impact absent effective deterrence within the context of the IR means that they can't escalate. The impact they conceded on the other page can't take it out, because our evidence specific to the Indo-China Ocean. Now, the argument they make about less sales and less credible, they don't give a warrant for this. You should not give it any weight. Now, the alliance stuff, they're not an alliance, but they are able to cooperate on broader things. Only we have evidence specific to sales and defense, and our evidence is that in the context of defense, it does matter. It's the lodestar of relation, the thing that guides it in the first place. Is something India views as key to build up their own military with the United States. If we cut them off, then they'll view the relationship as completely busted. Now, the econ diamond and everything are wanting to see evidence cut prices this in. It says that the relationship is doing fine right now because Trump has been leaning on trade issues with places like India, and also it doesn't assume that India defense cooperation is the thing that actually matters more, because it's a key geopolitical interest. The compartmentalized argument obviously doesn't apply, because we've read evidence specific to defense cooperation, which is not something that is obviously relevant to the scenarios that we have isolated about escalation in the South China Sea. The key internal link argument, I answered that about the no military effectiveness argument about bad advisors. You can group all this. U.S. selling to them is something that enhances it, because it enhances interoperability. It means they can sell more weapons, and allows us to have some level of influence on their military, even if it dooms deterrence. They haven't answered the specific arguments about why the U.S. restraints into Pakistan conflict are escalating in the first place, or the economic dynamism argument that we've made. And all of our evidence says that we are sufficient to enhance military cooperation. We don't need to have complete coordination, but things like arms sales do allow them to balance against China, which is the thesis of all the arguments they've acted on the case, which is Russia-China alliance. The defense that they've conceded cannot get them out of this, because our evidence specific to to IOR militarization. But even if we lose that, we can still win on the stuff about restraining the conflict scenario. Now, the Indo-Pac war scenario, they cannot solve this in any way. Their evidence is all about places. They made the argument that Russia will be able to fill in with things like the S-400 and IDWs is not uniquely escalator. Our evidence is that India will buy weapons from Russia, which enhances their modernization. That takes out the affirmative. Their evidence is that U.S. tech is key. That is assumptive of now, but it doesn't assume that in the future, Russia could sell them technology that was more effective, because Russia does have large stocks. And the evidence that we have said that it is a very important part of their ability to be cooperative. That means that they will never going to be emboldened. The NFU, they're never going to be emboldened when checking against places like Russia and China. There's no and check against places like Russia and China, which they have dropped. Now, the stuff that I've extended proves that they cannot solve this. Evidence that you read in the 1EC, you can read the vast majority about it. And Indo-China and Indo-Pacific conflict is about things like how conflict is going to be inevitable because of territorial incursion with places like China. The affirmative cannot resolve it. They don't have sufficient evidence saying they're about to change the way that India actually operates, to not want to go to war ever, and things like interdependence, institutionalism, check war in the first place.
Okay. We have 5:45.
Wait, David. Okay, running now.
You want a card doc?
Okay. The order is going to be modernization, middle power, and relations. Okay. Anybody not ready? Great. U.S. sales uniquely escalate conflict by emboldening India. That causes escalation with Pakistan, which they've conceded is a scenario for nuclear extinction. Their only argument is this Russia feeling claim, but there's a few reasons that that's just not true. First, as a czar evidence, that's a clear threshold for IEDWs and versus Russian technology. Russian S-400s is Russian S-400s are the first layer of defense. IEDWs layered on top of that, it sets a unique threshold of escalation via the czar evidence, which they've extended. Second is the Lee and Z evidence, which is that U.S. capabilities uniquely provide things like drones, AWACS, etc. that allow for the capacity for for miscalculation because of this perception of U.S. support. That's the third internal link. The Ahmed evidence says that the perception of U.S. support is what creates is what makes tensions uniquely likely because it emboldens Indian officials, which leads us to the fourth internal link, which is the Dorshner evidence says that the U.S. can generate credibility by not selling to India, allowing it to moderate conflict between India and Pakistan, which is independently a reverse call to claim that they haven't grappled with. Their argument is that all our evidence assumes modern tech and not what a decrease in tech would mean for Russia filling in. But this just misses the boat because Russia had been selling in the past, but the reason that India had been switching to the U.S. was because only U.S. was able to sell enough capable tech. The Lee and Z evidence bolsters this claim by saying why the U.S. tech is uniquely quality and other tech doesn't match up, but independently the reverse causal claim via the Dorshner evidence as extended above overcomes this. And the other argument is about territory incursions. Doesn't matter in the world of a reverse causal argument that I extended above. Move on to middle power. I don't know if you noticed, but this is the exact same economic dynamism scenario they went for on the relationship side, which means that I'm going to do a lot more on it there. But here, really quick, few things is that we conceded that this argument because they didn't articulate it as an arms sales key because none of this evidence is arms sales key. You should read it after the round and make the determination for yourself. Either way, the rising expectations argument still links to it. That'll be on the relationship side, and we conceded that India being strong is inevitable. That takes out economic. That's the last card they read on this advantage. It takes out economic dynamism in both here and on the relations, which because it proves that India will never inevitably be bolstered enough to be confident in its capacity that makes it not turn to nationalism. Move on to the relations just said proper. At the top, there's no they solve argument because the U.S. can't moderate. The Ahmed evidence is specific to the U.S. is decking its credibility in moderation because of sales to India. It causes Pakistani distrust, Indian emboldenment, etc. Second is the economic dynamism scenario. They've missed the boat. There are a few arguments that I'm going to extend at the top. First is the Dorshner evidence. It says arms sales. David extended that the Dorshner evidence cites that arms sales as draining resources. It causes India to overinvest in the client-partner relationship as opposed to focusing on their domestic interests. Obviously, only recalibrating the Dorshner evidence cites specifically ending U.S. arms sales as allowing the Indian military to recalibrate and focus more on India's domestic capacity. That solves the nationalism argument because it's based on India's belief of their own nuclear arsenal. They're more confident about it. This evidence specifically says that they're more confident about it if they're not buying from the U.S., which is the internal link that the Joshi evidence articulates. The other argument is the Lawani argument. Rising expectations are cause India are existing now because India is an improperly framed by U.S. policymakers. They see it as an ally, but India can never live up to that expectation because they don't have enough capacity. The 2NR completely misses the boat, and this argument is hypercharged because if you read the qualifications of all their authors, they're all U.S. officials posturing about U.S. officials posturing about the U.S. None of them consider India's unique capabilities, which this evidence is specifically indicting the way that U.S. officials perceive it. The impact of this argument is making collapse inevitable because the U.S. is inevitably going to expect things back when it offers India this high tech, which India is never going to be able to answer. The last argument is the Ludwig evidence. Issues are compartmentalized. This is the most recent evidence because all their evidence is from 2011. It says things that the relationship has become more ambiguous. It means that even if tech things are ended, India still knows that it can cooperate with the U.S. in other ways, which all their arms sales keywords don't assume because they're not in the context of economic dynamism. I'll go to the deterrence proper part of it now. Deterrence collapses economic dynamism is inevitable without strong U.S. relations. All of the reg cards we read assume U.S. arms sales and cite multiple warrants for why we cannot effectively coordinate a deterrent strategy with India. One is military overstretch. The 2AC reg card, insurgency, SAP, India defense budget, Pakistan's response to terrorist attacks are always a foremost priority and demand distinct resources and force structures which strain Indian military spending and shape their entire military doctrine, making a shift towards China politically unthinkable. Lack of national security priority in India politics more broadly disincentivize promoting foreign policy. Choose weak goals. The 1AR reg evidence cites lack of CMR due to no robust Indian defense establishment, undermines Indian attitude to cooperate over deterrence. Three is jointness. There other 1AR reg evidence lack of jointness among branches in the Indian military limits interoperability with U.S. system dooms any military strategy since there's no inherent discussion about the strategy is credible. Either way, they just assert that that F-16 sales are key to CATSA. You should read their evidence because it just says that this is probabilistic, not that it's necessarily guaranteed, which means that there's inherent ambiguity in whether they even solve.
Good debate.
Good debate. Good debate.
All right, I'm ready when you guys are.
We're good.
Sam went to get water. I don't know if he's back yet.
Okay.
Let me G-chat him.
I'm here. I don't know.
All right. I voted negative. I thought that the neg one that Russia would fill in, and that really kind of colored things for me a lot more than I ended up thinking it was going to during the debate. I thought that the neg evidence was actually way better on Russia fill in, speaks directly to the argument that the affirmative is making, and says that in a world where there was an increasing reliance on Russia for a partnership and for weapons imports, that they would likely seek greater, what's the word that I'm searching? Greater capability from the weapons, and that would lead to the kind of de-escalation vis-a-vis Pakistan that the affirmative evidence is speaking to. I read the AF evidence, and I thought that it basically is talking about why right now there would be an issue with the integration of American weapons on top of the S-400. However, it does not say that Russia lacks a capacity to help them build up, or that seeking those additional capabilities would not result in the same asymmetries or the destabilization of the region that the affirmative evidence speaks to. So I thought that, in conjunction with really the preponderance of evidence that's being read by both the AF and NEG, assumes a world where India tries to maintain their asymmetry over Pakistan and seeks to continue to expand their capabilities to challenge China. And so, given that the vast majority of the evidence read by both sides spoke to that as the desire of India, I thought the safest route to go was to maintain the US partnership with India and attempt to moderate that. Now, two things that really made this tough for me. One is a lack of impact calc on both sides. By the end of the debate, I'm really kind of unclear what impact each team is going for. The negative is not really extending a whole lot external. You've got your impact defense against India and Pakistan, and kind of explaining your internal link to that breaking down. I thought that the neg actually won fairly easily that India and Pakistan were not likely to go to war, and that the United States partnership with India kind of in the abstract would moderate them. But the two issues that I had with that were like, some of the evidence that the neg is reading there is like just kind of, I mean, not ahistorical, but doesn't assume the way that history has progressed. You know, like there's a from 2011 that's like, you know, you'd never believe what would happen in India if some kind of Hindu nationalist rose to power. It'd be wild. Hello. So that was like really gave me some pause. The other kind of issue that I ended up having, though, was that I don't really know what the AF is extending beyond this kind of India Pakistan thing, but the 2AR and even 1AR to that matter has really no impact calc on Indo-Pak war, and I just thought that it was low probability. So kind of in a nutshell, I thought that the India-Pakistan war argument is largely inevitable in a world where India would just seek to modernize its arsenal through cooperation with Russia, and that there's not any kind of argument for why cooperation with the United States is the thing that makes that conflict uniquely likely between between Pakistan and India. So I thought that that is ultimately inevitable, and that we should take a chance, however small it might be, on the US moderating India and preventing conflict that way, and I guess taking whatever deterrent measures we can against China. I thought that the AF had probably several pieces of argument about interoperability or the issues with the US-Indian alliance, but I kind of wonder how I'm supposed to read that when the negative has much newer evidence there that I think is assumptive of some of the problems that the AF evidence might be speaking to, but I'm really not for sure because neither side really parsed it out. So I thought that the 1NC evidence on the DA, the TELUS evidence, and then what was the other, let me pull this up real quick. The other piece of evidence that the neg read on the disadvantage in the 1NC, the Christian evidence. I thought those two pieces of evidence were really good. I thought the TELUS evidence is obviously the newest evidence on the subject by about a year, and talks about resolving, I think, a lot of the issues that is brought up in the AF evidence, whether that be our ability to maintain interoperability with India, the lack of a modernized force on their part, or an asymmetric relationship. I think that the neg evidence speaks to kind of the rising expectations argument that the AF is talking about. That's like Modi is okay with the relationship as it is now and is actually kind of like convinced Trump to further invest in that argument. And I think although the AF evidence is good on why rising expectations could theoretically be an issue, I don't really know what the scenario would be that would cause the break in the alliance or the misperception in what they think is coming from it, because the neg evidence speaks to giving them the favored nation status, to treating them similar to a NATO ally, and I get why that rises the expectation, but at that point we've got a uniqueness issue, and I don't know what it would be causing it to break, given that the neg evidence speaks to the way that Trump and Modi are cooperating and how India is okay with that cooperation right now. So I think if the expectation has already been risen and the neg evidence is superior on how they perceive that relationship to be going, then it's likely that would be in an okay place, even if there are some issues with it. So I think the AF wins kind of enough to chip away at these arguments. But ultimately, the thing that got me was I think the only way to maintain a partnership with India that makes it so that they're not more aggressive and that allows them to kind of become a partner with some sort of regional influence rather than just a rogue nation modernizing is to continue our ability to influence them, however imperfect that may be. And so I actually thought that the neg evidence is far, far superior on India's ability to both modernize, obviously, but for us to kind of control the way that goes and to demand the way that happens. And so I actually kind of thought the like GPC evidence re-highlighting was an okay argument in terms of making India a middle power that has some sort of regional influence without making them simply modernized and dangerous. So all of that being said, like tough for me to decide what particular thing I'm latching onto to vote for either side. And I thought that the main impact that the AF extended was made inevitable by Russia fill-in. So I was taking my chances at a US-Indian alliance that might be productive.
I just have like one question about the Russia thing.
Sure.
Which card did you say they had that was predictive?
Let me pull that up.
I'm just trying to find it.
Yeah, it was in the 2 NC, what's the name of that card? TOC.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then, while David's looking at that, I had another question,
Sure.
which is just like my 2AR thinking was to hedge a lot of my bets as far as the case and the even the relationship side on this like reverse causal Dorschner claim. Could you speak a little bit to how you evaluated that?
Yes, actually, let me pull up. I have notes on Dorschner that I should have spoken to already. So Dorschner, I actually thought was like less reverse causal than you wanted it to be. And I thought it was kind of speculative about something that should happen, but not descriptive about what would happen in a world where we reduce the arms sales. And this is kind of what I was speaking to earlier, where I was saying, I just thought like the preponderance of evidence read by both teams spoke to an Indian leadership that is set on expanding their regional influence and strength vis-a-vis Pakistan. And so I thought the Dorschner evidence wasn't really realistic to what a world of reduced arms sales from the United States would look to. And then I thought it was more likely that Russia would fill in.
And sort of like still on the Russia stuff, like the tech key arguments that the 2AR chose to go for, like the stuff and the ZARR stuff. Do you think that there was a 1AR argument that you thought the 2AR could have said that would have been more persuasive on this argument?
I just don't think it's there. I don't, I think you have evidence that's descriptive of US tech that is being sold to them, but there's certainly nothing within the evidence that rises to the level of like, this is the only thing that this will happen from, or the United States is the only place that they can get technology in a similar capacity. It is descriptive of why that technology is bad and destabilizing, but it does not go so far as to say this is exclusively the thing that will cause this to happen.
Okay, and then like one last question about sort of the way the 2AR pivoted on this argument.
Sure.
Like the Ahmed and Ashraf card that we talked about, like the one about like the signal of US support.
Yep.
Did you give any weight to those claims?
I thought that evidence could not, where was it? I wrote something about this. Let me pull it up real quick. Oh, that's on my flow, not on my doc. Let me go over there. I didn't actually think that the Ahmed evidence thought that the US was the key thing signaling Indian aggressiveness. And I think even within that evidence, there's a line that says Western manufacturers would compete with Russia and Israel, and that India was inevitably driven to expand their counterforce capacity. And that it's that capacity that's the thing that sends that signal of destabilization. The US is merely the one filling that place right now.
Okay. Sam, do you have anything?
That's all I got.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can we just get some general neg comments other than more impact calc to help you resolve that easier? Like, how could we have made this a better, more cohesive strategy?
I mean, so two things. This is my first online debate I've done, and I found myself spending way more of my mental energy literally just trying to understand the words you were saying and write those down than I did kind of processing the entirety of the thing. And so I think slowing down a little bit and just kind of doing some of the more bigger picture explanation of what you want the judge to take from it would have been, obviously that's important in any debate, but particularly in this setting, I think would have helped me a lot. And then the second thing is just a thought about how all of these different pieces interact with one another, because to me it's there's some tension between the AF advantages as it is, and then when you introduce the DA that's trying to turn every advantage, in addition to building this external thing but not exactly going for the external thing, but that also being related to the China impact from the 1AC that kind of AF discussion of fell out. I just think that thinking more about how you want to tie those pieces together and explaining that would have been really helpful for me. I thought it was less of a technical issue or a focus on any one particular area.
Okay, makes sense. Thanks. Oh, yeah. Wait, sorry. What did you think about the soft power turn? Did you think that was okay? Like the Allison evidence that we read is super short, but quad
Yeah, no, I mean, I honestly, I think you're probably kind of right, but it is a little corny to be
yeah.
But actually they never extended the impact defense. And I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
So maybe a small technical issue on the part of the affirmative, but not one that I think I would have wanted to invest in had I been negative.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Best of luck in ELMs, y'all. Good job.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you.